It's a rematch of the national championship, Michigan at Washington. So why is Washington favored in this one? Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $2,000 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So Michigan is the underdog versus Washington this weekend. And we got some other things to talk about. We got IU ranked in the top 25. Purdue firing its offensive coordinator. And we have our Tuesday tweets. They're awesome as always. Hang on for that in the final segment. Meanwhile, one of the first Big Ten games that we circled on the calendar when the schedules came out was this Saturday's matchup with Michigan traveling to Washington in a rematch of last season's national championship game. Now, Washington right now is a 2.5-point favorite for this game. And the total is predicting a low score here. It's at 40.5. Now, we'll make our final predictions on this game on Friday. If you're new, we do pigskin picks in our final segment of the week each and every Friday. Obviously, this game will be on that list as well. But it's not too early to start looking at this football game, all right? So both teams have faced numerous changes since they met as college football titans, top of the world, national championship back in January. And of course, you know, Michigan won the game rather easily and finished the season a perfect 15-0. Since then, Washington left the Pac-12. They're now a welcome member of the Big Ten. Former Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh is now the head coach of the LA Chargers. Former Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer is now the head coach at Alabama and coming off the biggest win of his coaching career this past weekend. Congratulations to him. And both teams enter the 2024 regular season with massive overhauls on their rosters because most of last year's starters on both squads are now playing on Sundays in the National Football League. And that might be the number one reason that Washington is favored in this game, because their new quarterback is better than Michigan's quarterback. And plus they're playing at home. That's worth about 2.5 to 3 points. So maybe Vegas thinks this is a last second game, very evenly matched. Michigan, as you know, had to replace the very steady J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. And they've had to replace him twice. First with Davis Warren, who started the first 3 games of the season for the Wolverines, but he threw 6 interceptions. Alex Orji then replaced Warren, and he started every game since, but his passing game makes Iowa football look like Alabama by comparison. It's probably not a fair shot, but you get the analogy there. In Orji's 2 starts, he's completed 7 passes for 32 yards against Southern Cal, and he completed 10 passes for 86 yards last weekend versus Minnesota. The Wolverines won both games, by the way, with their running attack. Khalil Mullings has stepped up ahead of Donovan Edwards to really produce for them on the ground game. And they've had some timely defense as well. Now, Washington, they faced a tall order as well. They had to replace their quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. and his trio of wide receivers. And I thought that Penix was the most accurate long ball passer in all of college football last year. So he's now been replaced by a 23-year-old senior, Will Rogers, who transferred in from Mississippi State. In 5 games so far this year, Rodgers has completed 75% of his passes for over 1,300 yards. It's a much different picture than what's going on in Ann Arbor over there at Washington. He's got 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. His QB rating is 174.7, almost 35 points higher than his career average. So he's doing really well. Now, Washington did lose a road game at Rutgers last week, and he was still pretty good in that game. He was 26 of 36 for 306 yards and a couple of touchdowns and no picks. The problem with Washington in this game was they missed 3 field goals on the night, and they had some untimely penalties as well. There was one where they had blocked the Rutgers kick and they had too many men on the field, somebody coming on to celebrate or on the field. Anyway, Rutgers kept the ball and then they got a touchdown to go up 14-3. A very costly, timely penalty that they had. So the penalties and the kicking game is what did them in on this. Otherwise, Washington's had some pretty good moments so far this year. They're a solid team. Rutgers was a solid team. Somebody got to lose that game. Further adding to Washington's possible advantage in this game Saturday, the injury bug is catching up to Michigan a little bit. Now, star cornerback Will Johnson, he missed the Minnesota game with a bad shoulder. He hurt that in the USC game. Edge rusher Josiah Stewart, he sat as well due to an undisclosed ailment. Now, Sharon Moore, he said that both were game time decisions last week, so they're trending toward looking good to coming back into the lineup and playing at Washington this weekend. We'll see. We should point out that Johnson's replacement last week, Jair Hill, he stepped in and got his first career interception versus the Gophers. So maybe a little bit of depth there for the Wolverines. Michigan also saw their left tackle, Miles Hinton, and center Dominic Guidance banged up in this game. Both should be good this week, we think. Although we can never be too sure with Sharon Moore. He plays a little bit of gamesmanship with his injury reports, we've noticed, and he's not quick to give a lot of information and likes to keep people guessing, more so the other team than the media, but the media is guessing as well. So that's the injury situation with Michigan. And while Michigan likes to rely on their power running game, the Huskies have a very good ground game as well. Running back Jonah Coleman. This guy's only 5'9", but he's packed with muscle, 229 pounds. He's got 521 yards rushing so far and 4 touchdowns. But I think his most impressive statistic is his 7.2 yard per carry average. That's outstanding. He's also caught 13 balls out of the backfield so far this year. So he really keeps this Washington offense going, and he's somebody that Michigan is going to have to keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see what Washington and head coach Jed Fish and what their strategy is for this game, because they're going to rely on the running game, but you can't run up the middle on Michigan with tackles Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. So maybe a little outside run, few bubble screens, that kind of thing. We'll see. But, I mean, you can't just not use Coleman because you can't run him up the middle. Use him in other ways. And it's going to be interesting, a little cat and mouse game with this game on Saturday. Maybe Will Rogers can loosen up the Wolverines defense a little bit with some surgical passing as well. He does have 2 very good targets that will keep the Michigan secondary busy. Denzel Boston, 30 catches already this year, 412 yards and 7 touchdowns. And Giles Jackson, 34 catches and 401 yards and a touchdown. In fact, Boston had 6 catches and 125 yards and 2 touchdowns versus a solid Rutgers defense last Friday night. So those 2, Boston and Jackson, could keep the Michigan secondary very, very busy all day long. And there'll be no looking ahead to this from this game here. It's an important game in and of itself. But after that, Washington is at Iowa. Then at number 23 ranked Indiana. They got dates against USC and Penn State and Oregon still ahead on the schedule. Michigan goes into a bye after this one. So they'll be they got the bye, and then a tough Illinois team who we saw against Penn State on Saturday night. They got rival Michigan and hosting Oregon all right around the corner at this point. Anyway, love to get your thoughts, both Washington fans who are new to us and Michigan fans as well, about this game. It's a very intriguing game, and we're looking forward to it. We're going to go live after this game on our podcast on Locked On Big Ten on YouTube afterward for immediate reaction to this. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe and follow and share and like Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And don't forget our website as well, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there. And in fact, this one will focus under Washington and Michigan. We also put them chronologically. If you want to go back and check out the past couple of days, we always invite you to do that. And while you're there, if you want to get some free or not get some swag, not some free stuff, but it's out there for your shirts and your t-shirts and your hats from your favorite team. It's all right there at talkbig10.com. Great prices though. Great prices though. All right, we do have a kickoff time rather for the big Oregon Ohio State game at Autzen Stadium next week. That's another big one we have circled on our calendar. We'll have all the details there. And we told you previously to pay attention to Indiana. We will continue to do that. And where is Purdue heading after firing their offensive coordinator this weekend? Plus a great round of Tuesday tweets. All that coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Roy is a lot of fun. It's time for me to highlight the Roy Player of the Week. Now, Roy is a new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. You can download Roy for iOS or Android and enter the referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. This week, we have selected Oregon wide receiver Tez Johnson for his 11 catches and 121 yards and 2 touchdowns versus UCLA. He's fantastic. And if you were impressed, as we are, with his performance, you could show him some love. Just hop on Roy and throw in a few bucks. If everyone pitches in just $10, it adds up for Tez. And now you have the chance to show your appreciation for Tez and his standout performance this week, as well as what he'll continue to bring to the Oregon Duck program. Get off the sidelines and into the nil game with Roy and support the players. Change the game with Roy. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. But subscribe on YouTube right here if you don't mind. It helps us out, and it is free. And Locked On Big Ten, your team every day right here. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. Well, it's going to be the Big Ten game of the year and maybe a preview to the Big Ten championship. But coming up next weekend, October 12th, we've got Ohio State and Oregon. We now have an official kickoff time for that top 10 battle. Right now, it's the top 6 battle. So who knows? Maybe both in top 5 positions when they meet. It'll be 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. That means it'll be nationally televised on NBC's Big Ten Saturday night at a raucous Autzen Stadium. Naturally, we will be doing a live podcast after that game. We like to follow that primetime NBC Saturday night game around 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific afterward. If there's a bigger game at 3:30 or a big noon game, we'll move our schedule around. We've done it from time to time, but it looks like we'll be going live at that time a week from Saturday as well. Speaking of Ohio State and their 4-0 start this season following Saturday's 38-7 win over Michigan State, Buckeyes head coach Ryan Day reached a milestone. He became the second fastest Ohio State coach to reach 60 wins at the school. Only Urban Meyer has been off to a quicker start. It took Urban 65 games to get his 60th win. That's ridiculously good. Ryan Day took 68 games to get his 60th win. Both are remarkable. And what were we talking about in the offseason about job security and hot seat? I mean, again, I've always defended Ryan Day. I said all that noise about whether he beats Michigan or not, or whether there's a hot seat or not, is ridiculous. Guy's a great football coach who racks up a lot of wins. Meanwhile, we may see if Curt Cignetti is a great football coach as well. The first-year head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers has the attention of the outside football world, outside of Locked On Big Ten. We've been talking about him for weeks, but they've cracked the AP top 25, sitting at number 23. Congratulations to the Hoosiers. The Hoosiers were last in the top 25 briefly in the 2021 preseason. They had a decent COVID year, 2020, and they finished ranked. And so the preseason, the following year, everybody expected good things, but then they got dusted by Iowa 34-6 in the season opener. They never returned to the rankings until now. First-year head coach Curt Cignetti is telling his players, block out the noise. He likes what Nick Saban used to say. That's rat poison. Don't listen to it. Just keep doing your job. Keep your edge. Let's keep winning football games, avoid complacency, all that stuff. And he said that, look, he and his staff and the players that he brought in, the experienced players that he brought in, they're used to winning. All right. He's like, hey, don't get too excited being ranked 23rd in the country. So we're ranked. Good. Let's move on. The Hoosiers have Northwestern next. And if they win that game, they'll be 6-0. And what a great start. They're playing in that little 15,000 seat makeshift stadium on the campus on the shores of Lake Michigan at Northwestern while they are busy rebuilding their regular football stadium. Meanwhile, bad news for Purdue. They fired their offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell, on Sunday, right after the Boilermakers had another bad game against Nebraska. They struggled to score. In fact, the Nebraska-Purdue game was scoreless at the half, and then Purdue took a 3-0 lead in the third. I mean, this was old school, grinded out football that wasn't really going anywhere. And then they got blown out with Nebraska ended up scoring 28 unanswered points in this one. Harrell, he was second-year head coach Ryan Walters' first big hire on his staff when he put it together after he got the job in 2022. Harold was a record-setting quarterback from Texas Tech under Mike Leach, used to sling it. They were kind of hoping to do the same thing with Hudson Card. Really hasn't worked out. And after opening the season with a 49-point performance against FCS team Indiana State, Purdue has scored just 38 points and losses to Notre Dame, Oregon State, and Nebraska. The 39-year-old Harrell is Purdue's highest-paid assistant, earning $950,000 this year, slated for $1 million next year. So good for him. He still got that contract. Offensive analyst Jason Simmons will handle the play calling this week in the Boilers game against Wisconsin. So that's all the latest news coming up here today. If you're new, we always like to do a feature in our third segment. We do our top 10 Big Ten observations on Mondays. Tuesdays, we do Tuesday tweets. Tomorrow, we'll have our conference power rankings, the standings as we see them. Thursdays, we look ahead to the weekend on the Big Ten Network and pull out the classics and live broadcast schedule. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll do our pigskin picks on Friday. But we've got our Tuesday tweets, some great ones out there. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. We'll have those in 1 minute. Hang around right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel makes the fun of watching sporting events even more fun. Got something for NFL fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's on FanDuel.com. Looking ahead to the NFL, Thursday night football this week, Bucks at Falcons, NFC South division game. Falcons are 2.5-point favorites there. The Bucks are playing pretty well right now. They both had some good moments so far this year. Kind of like the Bucks in that one. But then again, road team on a Thursday night. Maybe we should go with the Falcons at -2.5. I got a couple more days to decide. Sunday, NFL going to London. Jets at Vikings. Vikings are 3-point favorites there. And college football, Big Ten football, Friday night lights. Michigan State is at Oregon. Did you know that Oregon is a 24-point favorite in that one? You can have all the fun with FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's get into our Tuesday tweets and have a little fun with this. I always enjoy this segment a lot, and I will put it up full screen for you, and we'll take a look. If you're on audio only, we'll try and describe these as best as we can. This is from PFF_college, and it is the freshman receiver class. Absolutely insane. So you got Jeremiah Smith here. Picture him from Ohio State, who made an amazing one-handed grab against Michigan State. And you have Ryan Williams from Alabama, who's just 17 years old and had the go-ahead game-winning touchdown catch in their game against Georgia. These two guys are going to come out in the draft at the same time. Who goes first? Might be the first two players picked in the draft. 1-2. They are freshmen that are fantastic, fun to watch. Meanwhile, here is at college football on Fox. 19 teams are still perfect after week 5. And undefeated, we got a handful of Big Ten teams on this list. You got, by the way, Navy, Army, Navy. They're on this list. They both haven't been 4-0 together at the same time since 1945, coming out of World War II. We got Rutgers on this list, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana. It's pretty good. Pretty good list of teams here. So let's those are the undefeated still, as we're more than a month into the season. This is from at the Red Ranger 3. Oh, this is Michigan scoring on Alabama. Everybody's making all the noise about Alabama this week and beating Georgia. It says you have to be elite in order to defeat Alabama. The last team to beat Alabama this year, January 1st, was Michigan. More Michigan from at Brandon. Fun fact, Alabama's only lost this year to the Michigan Wolverines. Another picture from the Rose Bowl. Here's from at Swanky Wolverine. He almost makes our list almost every week. This is Mason Graham, their defensive tackle, arriving with a amazing blue t-shirt that says it's a bad day to be a Gopher, ahead of arriving to take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Here is from at Big Noon on Fox Kickoff. We're heading to Happy Valley. The announcement is Big Noon Kickoff. Next stop, Happy Valley. That is UCLA versus Penn State. So there you go. Always keeping you abreast of that. This is from at NBC Sports, picture of Dylan Raiola. It says he's been balling in his first season as the Cornhuskers, and he leads all Division I freshmen with 1,224 passing yards. Yes, he does. Here's from at Big Ten Football. Indiana 5-0 for the first time since 1967 after their 42-28 win over Maryland. That's pretty cool. Here's some more Indiana love from at Indiana Football. The Cream and Crimson in the polls. The AP Top 25, the 23rd in the coaches poll. They're 24th in the country and looking to go even higher. Here's from at Big Ten tweets and the entrance to Penn State's whiteout energy game against Illinois, giving you goosebumps. And it's about a 20-second video of the fireworks and the crowd all wearing white at nighttime. It was pretty good. Here is a shout out from the Big Ten Network to the Oregon Ducks, undefeated Oregon. I don't know if we mentioned them a minute ago on that earlier tweet of all the undefeateds. Should have, if we left them off. They were there. They were on there. This is a close-up shot from at Buckeye Brutus Wayne. Me too, brother. Me too. This is the Michigan State sideline and people on the sidelines. Look at their faces and their mouths agape as Jeremiah Smith had just made that amazing one-handed catch going down the right sideline. And here's another look at Jeremiah Smith from at PFF College. Just a quick stat recap for Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith versus Michigan State. 6 touches, 102 total yards, 2 touchdowns. He was phenomenal. Yeah, he rushed for 1 too. What a great weapon for Ohio State. So there you have it, our Tuesday tweets, things that caught our eye. What do you think? If you want me to put something on, send it to me at Twitter, X at Talk Big Ten, number 10. Don't forget to hit me up with your comments on YouTube. And also, don't forget on our website as well, Talk Big Ten, number 10, talkbig10.com, where all of our podcasts go, and you can get your favorite team's merchandise there as well. Got a lot going on as we go through a very, very busy week. We're already looking ahead to this week 6 for the Big Ten schedule. It is hard to believe. And we'll have all the latest news, a couple more previews for some big games coming up. Maybe some more. We'll dive into the news about the SEC and Big Ten joining forces again. There are more stories about them, and maybe even ultimately making their own playoff system. We'll have all that coming up in just a little bit. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe. It's free forever. We'll be in the Big Ten loop together. Subscribe, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten right now on your favorite podcast app. And you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And give us a second listen. Go catch up on yesterday's or the day before in case you missed it. Always invite you to do that. And you can do a second listen with our friends at Locked On College Football, who are there every day as well, covering all things college football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for your visit here today. Enjoyed it as always. Can't wait till we meet again next time. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.